Oh man. So in terms of this particular industry, I mean, there's still lingering problems with the microprocessor, those 3TG conflict minerals in Eastern Congo. There's all of that. None of that's been fixed. It just, people lose attention span. It's just that you can get those things in a lot of other places. Gold especially, tantalum, tungsten. You can get those things in a lot of other places. So it's possible to actually redirect and kind of clean up a supply chain. And I imagine much of that work has been done. But do we know everything we need to know about how lithium is being pulled out of the ground? Because that's the other crucial component to these batteries. Be it human rights or environmental sustainability? Do we know everything we need to know about the manufacturing part of this? I mean, you hear stories every once in a while, these facilities in China, and they've got kids in there, and they're working 22 hours a day, and they're not being paid that well, and then it's quickly hush-hush and problem solved, don't worry about it. I can't get into China. I've tried a few times to get a visa. I've not succeeded as of yet, but I'd love to go poking around in some of those factories and get a sense of what's really happening. Because I know from what I've seen on the ground in the Congo with Chinese mining companies, human rights is an afterthought. It doesn't enter into the calculus.
And a lot of these companies are run by Chinese corporations as well.
Yes, yeah, no question. That's a big part of the problem, and we don't have to mince our words. We don't have to mince our words about it. They are a big part of the problem. Their government, their companies, the way they do business is a big part of the problem. But everybody knows it. Our tech companies and they know who they're in business with, right? They're not oblivious to how business is done in China and by Chinese companies on the ground in the Congo. Part of the problem is there's not even one U.S. mining company in the Congo to maybe show by a better example of how to do things. That's part of the problem. It's almost completely China plus Glencore and one or two other companies, maybe a Canadian one, and so on. But it's all, Last time I was there are 19 major industrial copper cobalt complexes. 15 are run by Chinese companies. Chinese companies means Chinese government. Glencore has a few more, and then that's it.
And then you're dealing with the same issues because these companies, these corporations are largely controlled by the government of China, which is also responsible for the forced labor camps and
Absolutely.
For the treatment of the Uyghurs and
well, we have to decide. We meaning American companies have to decide. What's the threshold? An American company anywhere in the world cannot behave the way some of these Chinese companies are behaving. And, there was one American company down there, Freeport-McMoRan, had the largest copper cobalt concession in the Congo. They sold it to a Chinese company in 2006 for $2.65 billion. And with that left the only American presence in the mining provinces of the Congo. And it's been a downward spiral since then. Because, you see, had at least one American company stayed, if not more, the chain would have felt tighter. Because America would be on the ground there. Right now, they just think, no, problem is way over there.
Right.
It's these Chinese companies, talk to them. It's their responsibility to do things right. And if an American company had stayed there, or even it would have been different. I do fundamentally believe that, and we need to have a presence there. We're the other way of doing business. I'm not saying our companies are perfect. The whole conversation we're having right now is because they have allowed a massive invasion of human rights to persist at the bottom of their chains. But it would have made a difference. I do believe that. And there needs to be more ground presence by American companies in the Congo. But yeah, there will need to be more conversations about this. I mean, you, me, and Tim Cook should have a nice sit down or you, me, and Elon should have a nice sit down and just let's solve this problem. Let's accept the truth. Let's solve this problem. I am a humble servant to any CEO that wants to solve this problem. I just want to see those faces that are etched in my mind and burned in my heart, the scenes I've witnessed, the testimonies of horror that I've heard, and that will be amplified by the book, by this podcast, and hopefully by other media as the story gets out there. I just want that pain to be closed.
Is there any potential for a Western company, an American company, or any company that operates under a much higher example of ethics and morals entering into this space? Or is all of that area completely controlled by Chinese corporations?
It's controlled. China has 70 to 80% of the production of copper cobalt ore coming out of the Congo. Glencore is the only other behemoth down there.
And they are from
a Swiss UK company.
And do they operate differently?
They've got their own checkered past. They're under investigation by the U.S. and UK and Swiss governments for corruption, bribery, fraud in the Congo as well as other places. I think they paid some fines for it. A lot of artisanal cobalt flows into their supply chain as well, based on what I've seen on the ground. But there's China has 70 to 80% of the production of raw copper cobalt ore. They produced last year 75% of the world's supply of refined cobalt, and the two of the top 5 biggest battery manufacturers in the world are Chinese companies. The biggest one, CATL, has a 1/3 market share by itself of all the batteries and all the cars and gadgets and gizmos. So they control it. And that's part of the problem.
So was there ever an opportunity for American corporations to control? I mean, when they realized that cobalt was such an integral part of this technological age that we live in right now, was there an opportunity for them to go in and implement their own standards and extract cobalt in a more ethical way?
Yeah, they realized it too late. China saw it. They signed a big deal with the Congolese government 2009, which opened the door to Chinese mining companies.
So this is the early ages of smartphones.
Yeah, they saw it. They saw it way back. The world, they cornered the cobalt market before the world knew what was going on. And Freeport was there. They left in 2006. Unfortunately, I actually talked to an executive over there who was one of the people running that concession, and the way he explained it, they were on the wrong end of some oil and gas investments, and they had to cut debt. And so this sale was one of the ways they did it. But ever since then, there's been no U.S. presence. It's almost all Chinese companies. They cornered the market early on.